This is Chrissie with Front Row for Life, and I am interviewing Andrew with Gypsyhawk. Okay.
What's up?
First, let me start by congratulating you on the release of Revelry. Sorry. You would think I've been drinking tonight.
Revelry.
And Resilience. I've spent the last couple days listening to the album, and I've really enjoyed it. It kind of takes me from Black Sabbath to Motorhead with, it was the last song you did tonight.
Oh, State Lines.
State Lines, that's it. That reminds me of Motorhead. It kicks me with Motorhead for some reason.
Yeah, it's got some of that digga type of thing.
When I first heard it, I'm like, yeah, this reminds me of the Motorhead album with Ace of Spades on it. I'm like that late 70s into the 80s in-your-face heavy metal.
All right, that crossover area.
Yeah, I'm like, I like this. This is really cool.
Cool.
I've really enjoyed your album.
Cool. Awesome.
Now, while doing my research into Gypsyhawk, we really couldn't find a story as to how you guys really formed.
Okay.
Now, I know that Eric Harris was in LA after leaving Skeleton Witch.
Right.
And I know that he met up with you, but there's no story as to how you guys met.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. When he was left Skeleton Witch and got stuck in LA, he didn't have anyone to call except for the people at Prosthetic Records, who was Skeleton Witch's label, and they at the time knew that the original lineup of White Wizard was starting a new project, and were looking for a bass player, and that he should get in contact with them. So he got in contact with them and was like, oh, listen, I'm in Skeleton Witch and looking for a band. Like, you got the gig. You were in Skeleton Witch. At the time, they only had one guitar player. We're looking for another. And they knew me, the guys who went on to become Holy Grail, and were in White Wizard, knew me from my old band, Sons Beneath, because we were both Pasadena bands and gigged a lot together back then. So they had me audition, and I came in and auditioned. That's where I first met Eric. And I didn't get the gig, which is fine because I don't even care to play fast like that. It's not my style. But it was still fun auditioning for them. They're cool guys, and it would have been fun to be with them. But anyway, that's where Eric met me, and after a few weeks of jamming with them, he decided that he was just not feeling metal anymore. He wanted to start a rock and roll band. The only other guitar player he knew in town was me from that one audition. So he called me up out of the blue, and I thought he was, when he was like, this is Eric, I thought he meant some dude that I hadn't seen in like 6 years that I knew in college. and then he's like, no. I was like, Eric who? And anyway, so he asked me if I wanted to start a band with him. And my band at the time was doing better and better, but I knew that the other guys, despite being two of my best friends and awesome musicians and blah blah blah, weren't in for the life. They had other things going on, relationships and other careers, and I wanted to be in a touring band. Right. And so when Eric was like, do you want to start a band? I said, fuck yeah, I know you're down to fucking do it. So that's how we got connected, and we found the first few guys through Craigslist. And eventually we found the right drummer, and that was like 9 months later, and we recorded a demo, and the demo got passed to Ben Murray from Creator Destructor Records, so we just went to press it because he worked at Pirates Press. We just wanted to pressing the demo, and he was like, fuck just pressing this, like I'm going to sign them to my label and put it out. So we recorded Patience and Perseverance, our first record, like a little after a year of forming. Okay. And then that came out in July of 2010. We started touring. We eventually found out after a few tours that our first drummer, he wasn't cut out for the life. Found out on the next tour that our other guitar player, despite being a phenomenal musician, wasn't one of us, to put it bluntly and nicely. And so that's... After then, we picked up Ian and Ron, who are now the full lineup, and that's when Gypsyhawk became the full fucking thing. Okay. So we did one tour with them, and that tour picked up so much buzz that people around the country were calling people at Metal Blade and saying like, you gotta check out this band, see them live, and at the end of that tour we did an LA show with Holy Grail of all bands, and Mike Faley, the VP over at Metal Blade, came out, shook our hands about the record, and a few days later we got the phone call.
How has it been working with Metal Blade?
Awesome. It's been fantastic.
Oh, well, that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Now, where did you guys come up with the name Gypsyhawk?
Eric made that up before he started talking to me. I think that was a suggestion for the band that was going to become Holy Grail. It didn't stick with them, but he kept it around and even like started a MySpace for it. That fucking useless thing. And so he brought it up.
What's MySpace?
What are you, 16? You don't know what MySpace is? I'm old. Anyway, so like that, he proposed that as one of the band names when we were doing band names, and it's part of the reason why our very first drummer didn't work out, because he said there was no way in fuck he was going to be in a band called Gypsyhawk because he thinks gypsies suck. And once I finally got signed on, I was like, no, this is a good band name. This is a really, in fact, other people liked it. We were going to sell the name to other bands that were starting at the same time because they liked it so much, but we held on to it. That drummer I was just talking about, he's actually the drummer for Huntress now, which is pretty funny.
Huntress?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it just was like, I think it was just a combination of words that sound good.
Okay. And what are some of the musical backgrounds for the four of you? Not just necessarily the bands, but like, is there schooling or stories or like influences? Yeah,
well, Eric Harris, both grew up on like punk metal backgrounds, but we don't have any real formal training.
Okay.
Just listening to records, playing in bands, shit like that. The other Eric, aka Ron, and Ian both have degrees in music from music schools.
Oh, wow.
And so they have all that going on.
Okay.
And that helps bring a nice mix of just like raw energy coupled with, schooling that can sort of like help explain and help expand on ideas. So it's a really cool mix of things.
Kind of helps when you got music theory in there, huh?
Yeah, I mean it does. But the part of the problem with our first album was that we relied too much on theory, because our other guitar player, Scotty, like I said, he was a genius and he knew everything he had to know about theory. So whenever we were sort of at a pause on what to do with a song, we would just like rely on him to be like, okay, what would you do as a theory nerd?
Right.
And we don't rely on that as much anymore. Like I don't believe in it. I personally feel like I don't want to learn that shit. I feel like I would be inhibited too much, by my brain and not as much by my balls and guts on writing if I had that sort of background, Right. Now,
did the schooling help? Because I know that you guys have always produced your own records. You're like a DIY as far as producing your own albums. And in the research that I've done before interviewing you, it said that you always knew that was what you wanted to do, that you wanted to produce your own albums as Gypsyhawk. Now, their schooling, did that help in that? Did anybody have schooling in that?
In producing?
In producing, yeah.
No, we just didn't want someone to tell us how our songs should actually sound. And actually, I'm using in quotes.
Okay.
Because we wanted what the fuck does a fucking guy who isn't in a band know about writing music? Now, I'm sure there's big star producers out there who can answer that question, but we're not going to pay money for someone to come in and tell us that our months of work and and sweat isn't up to mustard, because we really think that we write good ass songs that don't need someone else to come in and tell us shit, and like I said, we're not going to pay for it. Right.
So, do you think you were so you would say it was more enjoyable? Would you say it was more enjoyable that way? Like, did you guys butt heads more?
Yeah, there was a lot of head butting, and there was a lot of compromise, and I think that's good
You get a better product that way?
Definitely. But, you know, we've worked with producers before in other projects, and they want to, you know, we produce our own shit. Like, stuff starts out rougher and longer, and through the powers of democracy and whatnot, produce them ourselves. You know, we don't go in there like assholes not knowing what to do with these riffs that we have, and they're not fucking pieces of shit. We know what a good song sounds like, and, you know, we're not... That said, we're not trying to write pop radio hits. Like, that seems to be the experience with a lot of people I know who work with producers. They're like, no, that song's not fit for the radio. Well, not every song's supposed to be fit for the radio. It doesn't fucking matter. And you're not going to take my 7-minute... Not that we have any of those, but 7-minute composition that I worked hard on and condensed it to 3.5 minutes. Who the fuck are you to do that?
Right.
So no, we don't want that kind of crap.
Right. Now, I've also read that you guys are really tired of the current metal scene. What has left you guys so tired of where the metal scene's going right now that has brought you back to just straight balls to the wall heavy metal and away from the extreme metal?
This has been coming up a lot, and I feel like it's something that we didn't mean to like make a big point out of, because like we don't mean to disparage any bands like or anything like that, like you know, we share a label with some of these with extreme metal bands and stuff like that, and it's not so much of like not liking those bands. It's more of like not caring. So, you know, we just didn't want... We were feeling at the time, in the end of 2008, like, Metalocalypse was the biggest thing in the world. And, like, metal was just becoming this, like, really trendy thing, which felt like a bubble that was bound to pop. And it seems like it's on that way, but... You know, that makes it sound like we were thinking about it from a marketing standpoint. I'll speak for myself. I wanted to start as like a side project around the same time we started Gypsyhawk. Something that was more fun-oriented. And more like a basement rock band, as I call it. Like a band that you would see in a basement. Jam-packed with just people getting fucked up, smoking cigarettes, spilling beer on each other, bobbing their head and rocking out. You got girls, you got dudes. You don't have just a bunch of guys standing with their arms crossed looking at everything you're doing on the guitar, you know, flexing their muscles, looking tough and shit like that. It's just like we wanted to go back to whether it's the 70s or somewhere in the 80s or any time in rock and roll history, fucking go back to Elvis, where it's all about having fun and making good tunes that people want to hear again and again and again. So it was as simple as that, really.
So it wasn't necessarily anything, it was just...
It's just what we were all feeling at the time.
We just feel like playing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Now, I've read that Eric Hay and Ian were an instant click with the band.
Yeah.
And how things I'm curious how things have been working with them, and how touring's been with them so far.
It's like being on the road with your best friends.
Cool.
I mean,
that's cool.
I can't imagine anyone better. Granted, like, Eric's the person I've known the longest, and that's been since the end of 2008. But I feel like I've known all these dudes like my whole life, and it's fucking cool. I mean, we're brothers, and that seems like the only way you can do this life.
Right.
I know other people who, you know, they work with another guy in their band because they make good music together, but they don't really get along. I can't imagine doing that, and that was the problem with our first guitar player, is that, like, yeah, we made good music together, but it just, we couldn't hang out with him.
Yeah, you can't stand to look at one another.
Yeah.
And if you can't stand to be in that tiny little van together...
Right, that is our home for months at a time. And so you have to be able to put up with this shit and know when to stand up and do that and realize that in the end, it's just... You're going to be brothers at the end of the day.
Right.
All these guys know how to party. All of them know how to handle their shit. They're all phenomenal musicians. And we make good music together, so...
Right.
It's a dream. You know, it's fucking
That's
cool.
awesome. Now, how would you compare touring with Gypsyhawk with your previous bands? Is there a difference between touring with the rock bands versus touring with the extreme metal bands?
Well, that's a better question for Eric, because I never toured with my old band, really.
Okay.
But it feels like showing up to a party with this band just makes the party really spark. And with the extreme metal, it can be like that, but it's... And like I said, it's just like, I feel like it's a bunch of like penis waving, muscle flexing. Look how many fucking scales I know. Look how much shredding I can do. Look how much faster I am. All that crap, and it just becomes boring. And you know, and girls don't dig it. Like, we want this to be a fun party for everyone.
Probably the best answer.
Yeah.
Not necessarily true, but
No, we go to those shows all the time, but
Sure.
some girls dig it.
Few.
There's a few girls that dig it, not as many
God
girls
bless
dig
them.
it.
Or goddess bless them. Whatever you want to fucking call it. It just feels more all-encompassingly, to use a Mitch Hedberg word, awesome this way. And you know, I mean, who wants to stand there and cut off camouflage shorts and sandals and some band shirt you never heard of? Like, that's not cool. Like, why can't we do what like the hardest bands of the 70s did, and like be cool and, you know, dress with a certain sense of style and rock out and still be like good at your instruments and make good music. Like, that doesn't need to be dead. It shouldn't be dead, and I don't think it's ever gonna die. Mm-hmm. No one's gonna stop liking rock and roll. Right. I mean, some people might stop liking rock and roll, but rock and roll is always gonna go on. Who knows what's gonna go on with the rest of other music, and who gives a shit? Right? Life is too short to fucking spend your time showing off your scales. Just rock out and have a party.
And can you give us more information on the tour that you're currently on? You know, where do you go from here? How long does the tour go for?
Well, sure. We're in New York City tomorrow at Webster Hall, I believe it's called.
Oh, okay.
That'll be fucking sick. We've been on the road for a little over 2 weeks now. We still have until the 24th or 5th for the first leg of the tour, which is unfortunately the only part that Eagle Claw is going to be on, because Eagle Claw is fucking awesome. They're dope-ass bros who we just met 2 weeks ago, but they're, you know, brothers from another mother. And then after that week break, we have to hightail it back to LA to play the Metal Blade 30th anniversary party at the House of Blues with Armored Saint and not Sixth Reich, but Sacred Reich.
Oh, wow.
And then we got to get right back in the van like immediately and go back to Tulsa to start the second leg of this tour with American Sharks as the opening band, whom I don't know yet, but I've heard good things about them. But meanwhile, the whole time we're with The Sword, we're fucking awesome, and I've been a huge fan for years. I've never got to meet them before, but they're all sweet, cool guys. I'm super stoked, and so is everyone in our band to be on tour with them. Like, this is just, like, I can't think of a better package with sort of a top-down sort of situation that would benefit us by playing with a bigger band. Other than, you know, like, I can think of cool tours what I would be with, like, these are my best friends and these are my best friends, and be a fucking party. But they're like a band that's like, you know, like big that we get to open for. The Sword, it couldn't be better, and they're awesome guys, and I hope we stay friends for a long time. And I really like them, and their music is awesome, and they're shit. I love them.
That's cool.
Really exciting. It's really exciting.
That's really cool. Now, whenever I interview a band, I try to go online and read the lyrics to their albums while listening to them, so I can get a feel for what their songs, where their songs are coming from. Unfortunately, your band's songs don't have lyrics up yet on any of the sites. Like,
We don't?
No.
That's too big.
Nobody's gone up and put them up yet. So, although I have read lyrically, Eric is influenced by George R.R. Martin's series of A Song of Fire and Ice.
A Song of Ice and Fire is the series, which is the basis for the HBO show Game of Thrones.
And of quantum physics.
Right.
Can you explain the series to those of us who haven't read the book or seen the series? Do you
have that much time? I mean,
in brief.
In brief, what can I say? Well,
I mean, because I've never.
It's a fantasy series that's based in reality. So it takes place in a made up world with made up people in sort of a medieval setting. But as opposed to being like a good versus evil Lord of the Rings type thing, it's much more like The Wire, where you have like everyone's good and everyone's a little bad, and there's people you hate and then later you like them, and vice versa. And it's more like sort of set in a real politic mindset where you get into like the behind the scenes dynamics of I don't even know how to describe it, like political glad handing and stuff like that. And then at the same time there's cool shit like dragons and dire wolves and awesome wars, but it's a real character based story above all else. You know, a lot of character development, a lot of rise and falls and rises, and it's just like it's really gripping stories to me. I've read them all too. Before the show started, and they just have spoken to me and Eric on so many levels, and so we've decided to write songs about it. And the Sword has actually too. Their song "To Take the Black" is at least their one song that's like directly based on those books. But they're fucking cool. I mean, I really recommend anyone to read them. I wasn't really a fantasy person before reading them, but I read the first book. It took me about a month to read, but then the next two I blazed through a week each, and they're both like 1,200 page books. So I like cut off everything from my life because they were so addictive. And and heroes don't exist in them, which is kind of a cool thing. Like just because someone's who you're thinking is the good guy doesn't mean that they're immortal.
Right.
And so that's what I was saying. It's grounded in realism.
Okay.
It's just cool. It's real cool shit.
That's cool. All right. Now I've only got 2 questions left.
Okay.
This one's kind of funny.
This
is actually Karina's question for you. Okay. Now, knowing that you guys are kind of into, the whole quantum physics thing, she wants to know, are you guys a fan of the TV show The Big Bang Theory?
No.
No?
We're not. Short answer, no.
Okay.
And I'll give the caveat saying that I don't think any of us have ever watched it.
Oh.
Is it about physics?
Well, they're all scientists. One's a quantum physicist. One, they are into like the role-playing games, the magic games.
Really? I had no idea.
And it's based out of Pasadena, California.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
4 of them.
Oh, they all go to Caltech.
Well, they all are working now. They all probably went to Caltech, but they're all like in their 30s, like mid-30s.
Oh.
They have,
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Just thought maybe you guys had heard of it.
And maybe you were the heavy metal Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
Sorry to disappoint. We've never watched it before.
And then lastly, is there anything you want to say for your fans? Say to your fans. Oh, it's fine. It's the last question.
Yeah, if you see Ian dump a tomato on his head.
Please do. I'll pay you.
Yeah, just help keep rock and roll alive if you give a shit about it. Go support bands. Not just us, but local, other touring bands. It's rough out there. Buy merch. Show your support. Keep on partying. Don't let the man keep you down, and don't buy into the hype. Not everything you've been raised up to believe is actually true.
Do your fucking own thing and have fun.
Yeah. And work hard. Like if you're like someone trying do a band or whatever, don't think you can just sort of have a band and play the big venues that you pay to play and that you'll get it going on. Like, get out there and tour, work your fucking ass off.
Right.
Because that's what we did, and it's paying off. It's paying off, and it's totally worth it.
Awesome.
So make the choice.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was a fun interview.
Hell yeah. I barged in twice.